Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Let's get started. We have a few people here in the room. Guys, you're missing some pizzas here that we have for you anyways. So welcome to the Tech Talk for Apps for Office. I am Juan Balmori, and I'm here with Gareth. We are both PMs on the Apps for Office team, and now the new name of the team is Office Developer Platform. And we are really excited to be here with you guys to share, to show you how to create apps for Office, using this new cool technology. So before I get started, I want to know, everyone in the room, have you ever tried to build an app for Office before? You know what's an app for Office? Okay, that's great, actually. So I'm going to start, the agenda for this session is actually pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm going to talk to you about what is an app for Office in the first place. And for that, I'm going to show you a few demos of what's an app for Office so that you get, looking at an example, I think is the greatest way to learn what's an app for Office. And then afterwards, I'm going to do introduction to three basic parts of my presentation is divided in three parts. The first one is about how to set up your environment to create apps. Then I'm going to show you what kinds of apps you can create. And finally, I'm going to tell you how you can publish your app to the marketplace, because we actually have a marketplace, very similar to what we have for the phones or the Windows marketplace, but now you can also upload Office apps. So let me go through a quick. Down? Okay. Yeah, hello? Yeah, it's okay? Cool. So let's get started by showing you what's an app for Office. So let me go ahead and open, for example, Excel. So I'm going to show you a very cool demo that we prepared, for the elections, Let me switch my account here. So as you notice now in Office 2013, you can actually be logged in with an account. That it can be your enterprise account, or it can be like something like a Hotmail account. Let me switch that now to my Hotmail account. And I can acquire apps in the marketplace and then use them inside Office. And one example of that is the election tracker app. Let me show you how it works more or less. So this is actually a worksheet that has a map of the US, and it's actually showing in a graphic way, the results of the election. This is a map that obviously doesn't exist out of the box if you play, with the charts that are in Excel today. So one of the ways that we want to improve the Office experience is by creating these types of charts that are not available out of the box and are of domain-specific nature. So what we have here is actually a spreadsheet that it's connecting to services. It's connecting to some, trustworthy polls. The polls were, giving information about the elections on a daily basis. And then on the main page of the app, the chart was actually colored either blue or red, depending on the poll status. And then they have this control here that you can actually see the trends of how the election was, performing over time, So from September, you can see that actually the most interesting state, I think, was the Florida state, which means sometimes it was red, sometimes it was blue. And then, for example, in mid-October, it was red. And then finally, it ended up blue. But you have a very nice visualization of what was going on. So this map, what you see here, it's an app. It's actually an app. And in this, there are three types of apps. This type of app represents what we call content apps. Are apps that can be dropped actually in the content of a document. It's a really cool example. Let me show you another types of applications. So let me go up and open Excel. And there are many types of different apps you can create. And one of my goals today is to walk you through the types of apps you can actually do. So this app is about importing data. So there are a few services in the web that are really good, to get data about many different types. No, for example, the Azure Data Mart team is exposing in the web services to get, for example, the crime data per state. So you can go and let me show you how that works. So we have an app called Crime Data. So as you can see, the experience here to insert an app, we have in the insert menu, we have a ribbon that it's apps for Office. This is where the apps are going to show up. And when you click on it, you're going to see this dialog that we call the insertion dialog. And the insertion dialog is actually listing apps that are located in many different catalogs or categories, as we call them. For example, in the My Apps tab, these are all the apps that I have acquired in the marketplace. I go to the marketplace, acquire them, they will show up here. I can also have internal catalogs of apps. So these are apps that are deployed to SharePoint, and then in a known list, and then I'm able to Office is able to go to that list and grab the apps that are present there, which is the case for this example. So if I go ahead and click on Crime Data, you're going to see that a tasping app, this is a different shape we support, and it's not content, it's a tasping app, is shown as a tasping here. And then I'm able to actually here, go and select a state, like for example, let's say Washington State, and this chart knows how to get crime data from several years. I'm not interested in a specific city. I want to get just all the cities in Washington State in the year 2006. And when I click on Insert Crime Data, what is going to happen here is that I'm going to go to the Azure Data Mart service, collect all that information, and then insert it into a table in Excel. And I want you to see the patterns that we have here. We have patterns that are, like, for example, inserting data into the worksheet, reacting to events and stuff like that. And then the cool thing about apps is that you can use apps in a composable fashion, so that, for example, you can actually chart, or for example, I'm going to hide this column here. You can do things like, once I have this data here, I have all the cities, population, and violence and crime rates. I can actually, for example, select a few cities here, and then I can actually insert another app. For example, I want to see how this looks in a map. So a map is not a chart that is available out of the box in Excel. So therefore, there's an app that supports charting in a map that actually was built by the Bing Maps team. When I insert that app, you're going to see here that the Bing Map chart is going to be published into the workbook. It's going to be active in a few seconds. And then I can, chart some of the data that is here. So here's the Bing Map chart. I'm going to select a few states or a few cities and populations, from Washington State. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on this plot locations button here. So this app, what it's going to be doing is that it's going to be, this is a disambiguation. There's another city named like this in Alabama, but you get the idea, no? So basically, I need to disambiguate the city names, but you can see that if I specify, a city and some information, I can actually represent that data into a chart and have these very nice views inside Excel. So finally, I want to show you more apps that you can use in other Office solutions. For example, if I go to Word, I want to show you one very cool app that we have here that it's actually an enhanced experience of how to use Bing images, to insert images into Word documents. So if you go ahead and go again to the apps, insert apps for Office menu here, you can go to the Bing image search app. I can insert it here. And then this app knows how to go and fetch images from Bing. It's a bit slow today. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Well, there you go. So once you have the app activated here, you can actually search for, I don't know, in this case, I'm going to search for a car. And I'm going to hit on the search button here, and then you can see that I have images of Porsches. But then the cool thing about this this app is because you can do advanced things, no? So for example, you go to the filter options, you can actually be specific and say, hey, you know what? I just want to filter to yellow Porsches. So what that's going to happen is that a filter is going to be applied, and then you can actually have these images here, and then you can insert them into your document if you click on the plus sign right here. How does it know it's important? So that search something, you search for something to do something totally different, and sometimes a lot of so how does that? There you go. Well, this is just a search engine. This is the Bing search engine. And on the yeah, this is actually Bing. Now, this app that you're seeing here, this is this amazing use of these technologies that you can extend in very easy and interesting ways. Office, it's just HTML and JavaScript. Okay, so that's why we are very happy to claim to the world that if you are a web developer, you are now also an Office developer, which is a very awesome proposition. Okay. So let me go back to my presentation and tell you more details about how this works. I'm going to show you just a few slides to set up some context about what's exactly an app for Office. So from developer to developer, what's an app for Office? So you can think about an app for Office to be, what we call an iframe inside Office. So it's an iframe that you can show a web page, and that iframe can be actually located in a task pane like here, or it can be also content in the case of Excel. But that's it, it's a web page that is showing up inside Office. So therefore, an app for Office has two very, very important components. The first one is a web page, and this web page can have, actually, this can be any web technology you know about. It can be rich client side or server side. So this could be an ASPX page or a PHP or your favorite web technology here. And then you're gonna have this page deployed to some web server. Right? It's going to be somewhere on the internet or intranet can be as well. So this can also be used inside an enterprise environment. Then you're going to have the second part of an app for Office is what we call an app manifest. So an app manifest is an XML file that describes in a very basic way what's the app and what do you think it describes there. It describes exactly what applications it can show up. So you can say it's going to be in Word or Excel or PowerPoint. You can also configure if it's going to be a task-pane app, or it's going to be a content app, or if it's going to be a Mailbox app, which is the third type of apps we have. And basically describes how this app is going to get activated. And it also has an ID that uniquely identifies the app on the store. So what's a store? I show you more or less an insertion dialog that it was surfaced there, this concept. But basically, this XML file is going to get deployed to what we call an app catalog. The app catalog is, just a repository of apps, and this can be basically three types of catalogs. The first one is what we call the marketplace, the public marketplace. So we have a page that I'm going to show you at the end of my presentation to see how you can actually publish your apps and sell them there, and probably make some money out of it. Then we have a SharePoint-based catalog. This is just a list, the SharePoint list that has the XML files. And finally, you have a file share. So this just can be as simple as you don't require SharePoint for this. You can actually enable a file share in your network, and drop the XML files there, and you will be set up and running. So that's it. It's a very simple concept. HTML, a manifest file. Both are deployed to a web server. The other ones are deployed to an app catalog. And then you'll have this. Okay. So this can be as simple as hosting the Wikipedia page here, and you will have it in 2 minutes. You have an app ready to go. But then when we were designing this technology, we said, hey, it will be awesome if we can actually provide some interaction with the Word documents or with Office documents. The way to achieve this is via what we call via the Office JavaScript API, also known as Office.js. So Office.js is a JavaScript-based library that actually you can use to interact with document content. And I'm going to show you in a few seconds what exactly you can do with it. Okay? By the way, guys, feel free to pop questions, anytime. So Steps to create your app. So first of all, you need to set up your environment. What are the dev tools that you need to start creating apps? And the proposition here, we have two ways of creating apps. The first one is through an Office 365 dev tenant, also known as NAPA. And the second one is around with Visual Studio. Well, NAPA is basically the name we gave to the Visual Studio on the web version, right? So you just need a browser to start working on it immediately. And then you have the Visual Studio offer. So you can actually download Visual Studio 2012, install the Visual Studio tools for Office, with the Office tools, and then you have all the project templates for creating apps. Okay? So once you have your environment set up, the next step is to actually code your app. I'm going to show you what you can do, what types of features we are exposing in the API. And finally, you have to publish your app to the marketplace. And again, it can be the public marketplace, the SharePoint catalog, or the file share. I'm going to show you the most interesting one for everybody, which is the marketplace. Now, dev.office.com is actually your friend. So this is a web page that has all the information that you require to start creating apps, and it shows you all the gritty details of each of these steps, basically. So I'm going to start my presentation today by going to this website, actually. Yes, we have a certification process. Yeah, exactly. You submit your app, it gets a validation pipeline. We verify, among other things, that, for example, you are sending the icons of the right sizes, that you are supplying, images of previews of your app, and that the app actually works and is not showing, inappropriate content. If you follow the checklist, it should be an easy process. Okay. So when you go to dev.office.com, you actually end up with this page that shows you, it's optimized for first-time users. It's guiding you step by step on how you can start doing stuff. And one of the main things here is the start menu. It's going to tell you step by step how you can get your developer site. And so this is basically a process in which you can try it for free. Now, right now we're making a few changes here, and that's why we saw some mistakes on the registration process. But if you go to this page and you follow these steps, actually, if you as Microsoft employees have, access to an MSDN subscription, and if you have an MSDN subscription, you can actually get the developer site for free. Or else you can actually try it free here, and you get a 30-day trial, and then afterwards you're going to get charged with something like $99 per year. But middle March, it will be available in the middle of March. Okay, that's a good point. So it's like a few weeks from now, like a couple of weeks from now. Okay, so the idea is to go here and go on and say try it for free, and then you're going to go through a process here that well, I am currently logged in. That's why this is showing this message here. Well, basically, at the end of the process, what is going to happen here is that you're going to end up with a site that looks more or less like this. SharePoint. Remember my site name, so you go to this site. It's signing with a different user. So where's my, sorry about that. Let me jump to my thing here. Okay, so this is the, this one. Okay, sorry about that. So let's go to my SharePoint site, which is here. And then I have here my credentials, Share1. I'm going to see my password there, but I don't care because It's a test site, and you can use it if you want. There you go. So you're going to end up with a site like this. So this is actually Napa. It's the Visual Studio version on the web. And here you can start creating your apps. It's very simple. So when you have your dev tenants, you're going to get a lot of things here. This is a process that takes around 20 minutes. But basically, we're going to the end of the process, that you'll have a site that has Exchange, it has SharePoint, it has a link, and it has, you have an email account, so it's provisioned with all of these things that you need to create apps. And then you can actually install a developer site and have access to the Napa tools or the Visual Studio on the web. So this is the entry point for that experience here. And when you go there, this is actually Napa. I will show you really quickly how you can create an app here. So here, if you click on Add New Project, you're going to see all the types of projects you can create. We're going to focus the discussion today on apps for Office, not apps for SharePoint. It's going to be the demo. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to create an app for Excel. This is an app like, for example, the US map that I showed you earlier today with the election data. It's a content app in Excel. And what you're going to see here is that you're going to have a bunch of files. You're going to have, well, actually two very important files, which is the HTML page. This is actually the home page of your app. And it has some content, has some important things that are already included. Like, for example, this line here, it's pointing to the CDN where the office.js file is. So it's basically the JavaScript library. And then it has, a few buttons here that you can do some out-of-the-box interesting features here. Like, and if you click on the Run project, what is going to happen is that it's going to package your solution and it's going to deploy it into your SharePoint dev tenant. So it's going to put the manifest on the SharePoint list. And then it's going to launch the Excel web app application so that you can start debugging your solution. As you can see here, it's going to open Excel web app. And you'll see a content tab that is going to have a very simple, like, Hello World app already there. When you click on Set Data, all the data that is on this text box here, you can actually write the sample data into the workbook very simply, or you can read from it. So when you click on the Get Data button, you're going to get the current selection. Okay? And from here, you can start creating your app. Now, Napa is actually a starting point, and it's the good news for Napa is that it's evolving very fast. So we're deploying updates here. So not so long time ago, it used to be that we didn't have, for example, IntelliSense capabilities, and now we do have them. For example, you can type Office which is Office is the actual entry point for the JavaScript API. You can actually here type office.context. You can have access to all our object model. And then, document, and so on and so forth. This is awesome. Actually, I find out this morning that this is already supported, and it's great because we're trying to make this experience great, and we're adding features as we speak. But the idea here is that there are other things you can do in Napa, not only coding your app, as you saw here, but you can actually also, if you want to have like a richer, development environment, you want to have access to TFS, you want to develop on your Visual Studio project in the rich clients, you can actually do that by clicking on this button here. What is gonna happen is that your app is gonna get packaged, and it's gonna be opened in Visual Studio on your box. Which I'm not going to, believe me, it works, but I'm not going to do it right now because I don't have the latest version installed. That's basically it. I mean, well, you can actually, there are other features here, like, for example, sharing your project. So, for example, you can be working with somebody and in a project, and you can, this is a way of sharing your application with other persons. When you click on this button, you're actually going to create a copy and share it, with people. If you want it. I'm going to share it. Basically, what's going to happen here is that you're going to create a link that you can actually share with people, and then they have access to your site and your solution. Yeah, sure. Yeah, in Napa, so there are many things that are supported in Visual Studio Rich Client that are not supported in Napa. Like, for example, CFS, like Team Foundation Services. If you have a large team of developers and you want to keep track of issues and something like we have in Microsoft the Product Studio, so that, for example, is not supported in Napa. Napa is limited to apps for Office and apps for SharePoint. And for example, if you want to debug a rich client version, it's a bit complicated. You know, it needs to be web client based, but that doesn't mean that it's not a powerful tool. If you want to create apps for Office, I think you have more than you need here. It depends on what you like more, right? Visual Studio offers many other things. Does that answer the question? Okay. Awesome. Okay, so the contrapart of this is to actually use Visual Studio. So let me switch back to my developer server right here. And I'm going to show you how this looks like on the rich client. If I open Visual Studio, so again, on dev.office.com, there's a download section. And when you go to that section, you can actually download a trial of Visual Studio 2012 as well as Office 2013. So you can actually install it on your laptop and create rich apps by using all the power of the rich client of Visual Studio. So here, if you go to the File, New Project options, you're going to see that when you install the Office tools, there are going to be a few project templates for creating apps. No? For example, here I can create an app for Office. If I go to Office and SharePoint apps, I'm going to create an app here. There is, I don't know, demo 245. I'm going to click on OK, and then Visual Studio is going to start creating, well, it's going to ask you what type of app you want to create, if it's a tasking app, content app, or mail app. In this case, I'm going to do a type and a tasking app for Excel. And as you can notice here, I can actually target many applications if I am creating, for example, a tasking app. That's a very important concept in our platform because we have the vision to write your application once and use it anywhere. So that means that your app is going to run not only on Excel, but it can also run also in Word and PowerPoint and Project, and not only on the rich client versions, but also on other platforms, right? The rich clients or the web clients, and in the future, you potentially run them on the iPad version of Office if you're happy. So what I'm going to do here is a similar example that as I did in Napa, but this time in Visual Studio. And I'm going to actually show you more or less the project structures that are created here. So Visual Studio is creating behind the scenes these files that I need to work with on my solution. And as soon as it finishes on the Solution Explorer, we're going to have the similar set of files to the files that I show you in Napa. Tom, yes, you can do it. I don't know why it's so lazy today. But there you go. So you have two projects here. One of the projects has actually the manifest file. Remember that I talked to you about the XML file that describes the app. It's a very simple XML. You can see it here. It has an ID, version, provider names, and then as you can see here, it has this is actually one of the most important settings here, the remote. Where's the source located? So where's the app is going to be, what is the URL of the application? And then you also have here a set of things, You have the scripts, you have the Office.js library here. We provide you a JavaScript file that includes, the logic of the application. And we also include you an HTML file. You have access, for example, here to a design view. And it's something that you don't have in app as well, no? You have like the UI designer stuff. And here you can actually do the start, and you can actually have, the regular Visual Studio experience. So you can have, for example, you can define breakpoints and stuff like that. So you go here and you go to demo.js. On the set data, I'm gonna add here a breakpoint. And then when I go back to my application, the F5 experience, it activates the app. In this case, it's a tasping app. And it's going to be more or less the same flow here. I'm going to write some data. I'm going to hit on set data. And as you can see, you have all the debugging experience capabilities. So this is a method that we use to actually select data. This is one of the functionalities of the API. Insert data in the current selection is done through calling this method. And when I call it, actually, as you can see in Excel here, I'm writing the data. It's a very simple hello world. Okay? So this is the first step to get your environment up and running. Now, let me continue with my presentation, and I want to tell you more details about the other things you can do with the API. So things you should know here is some basic hints is that apps are nothing but web applications. So you can use if you know how to use CSS files, HTML5, JavaScript, REST calls, XML, OData, all the web technology, ASP.NET. So you can use those technologies in apps. Now we are blocking a few of them, for security reasons. For example, you cannot use ActiveX controls because ActiveX controls is a potential threat. Okay. Now, when you're creating apps, you need to consider that app creation has the same challenges and problems as regular web development. So what that means that, for example, we are subject to issues such as the same origin, same domain policy. So if you're going to call a service from your application, it needs to be in the same domain. Otherwise, it's a security risk and it's blocked by the browser. That happens in web development. It's a very common problem. And it happens as well on apps. So the good news is that we have the same solutions to those problems. So for example, for the cross-domain issues, one of the solutions is to actually write server-side code or to use technologies such as JSONP or other JavaScript ways of avoiding cross-domain. And you can use those same solutions in apps as well. So now the other thing is, most of the API, as you're going to see in a second, is of async nature. So that's because, as I was telling you, this platform is designed to work both on the rich clients and on the web platforms. And we don't want to have like a sync model in which we can potentially, freeze the UI and provide like a bad experience for developers. And of course, in web technologies, you're always subject to calling a service and waiting for some time so that it returns. And in the meantime, you want to make sure that you're not blocking the UI. So that's why most of the important methods of the API are of async nature. Another important thing about Office.js is that you should not think about, if you are, for example, a VSTO developer and are used to have access to a really rich set of objects to interact with Office applications. That's not the case in Office.js. Office.js is not a library that it's used for example, deeper Office automation. Office.js, it's designed for data consumption. As you see the scenarios that I showed you at the beginning. For example, the map is reading data from a table, is reacting to some events that happen as a result of interacting with that data. But it's not interacting at a very specific cell level or specific objects of Excel. We are interested on consumption of that data on this release. And finally, we have to make it consistent with all Office applications. The vision of write once, run everywhere. You can run your app. That's something that doesn't happen today with the current models in Office development. Usually what happens today is that you create a VSTO add-in targeting a specific application with a specific object model. In this case, we're trying to move those barriers away. We want the same app to be able to run cross-platform. And here's, to go into more details, so Office.js is actually a library that exposes many important objects. The first one is, Office, for those of you that are jQuery developers, the Office object is similar to the $sign in jQuery. It's the root object that exposes the functionality to the rest of the API. And the first object there is what we call the context object. And a context object, the meaning of that object is when your app gets activated on the Office applications, so some context is available to that app. No? For example, that app can be activated in Outlook, for instance. And if that's the case, then it's going to have access to some relevant object, such as the Mailbox object. On the other hand, if your app is activated in Excel, Word, or PowerPoint, what we call a document-centric application, you're going to have access to the document object here. And this object provides a common access to functionality, such as reading and writing to the active selection, the demo that I show you when you create an app, the Hello World. You have access to a concept known as bindings. So bindings is like a permanent relationship with a section of a document. Like, for example, think of this like, for example, how charts work. When you insert a chart into Excel, you actually select some data that is going to be associated with the chart. What the chart is basically charting. Excuse the redundance. This is the same concept. So if you, for example, in the U.S. election map, that map was bound to some specific, to a table of data in Excel, so that it can refresh when the data changes and detect other things. So custom XML parts is also another functionality that we're exposing on the API, and it's used to access, XML data islands that are present in the document. And we also expose, what we call a settings object. So this is like a property bag that you can use to store settings of the app. Like, for example, if you have a background color or color of your chart, and you want to make sure that the next time the document opens and activates the app, the color selected by the user is persisted, then you can save it as a setting and restore it when the app is activated again. So my last slide here about functionalities are that there are 3 types of apps. As I told you here, content apps, taskbank apps, or Mailbox apps. And on the 15th release, you can see that, for example, taskbank apps are supported in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Project. Content apps on this release are only supported in Excel and Excel Web Access, which is the web version of Excel. And Mailbox is only supported in Outlook or Outlook Web Access. One of the goals of my team on this release is to actually fill this table with X and make sure that we are available in all those platforms. Sorry, in all those applications. Okay, so what are the types of things you can do with the API? So, for example, you can read Outlook item properties. So, if your application, that type of application I didn't show you. Let me show you really quickly a demo here of this, of a Mailbox application. Exactly, like the LinkedIn, LinkedIn. Sorry, this is not my. Let me go back to Napa, because here I have a very cool example of an app. Well, it's not very cool, but it's a good example. So I'm retrieving my projects here, and for example, I have a mail app demo here. So the apps in Outlook behave a bit different than in other applications in this release, because as you were saying right now, these apps are optimized to the reading email experience. So that means that, for example, when you receive an email and the email has some entities, some well-known entities, we actually activate the app. So the application is activated as a result of finding specific entities in a message, like, for example, telephone numbers, addresses, URLs. Like, for example, if you send a URL with a YouTube video, we activate an app with the actual video, not just the URL. So you can see it right there in your mailbox. So what we do here is we actually this is an application that I created, and I'm going to run it. What is going to happen here is this app is going to get deployed to Exchange. So remember that I told you that your dev tenant has Exchange, SharePoint, and many other things. So these Outlook apps are deployed to SharePoint Mailbox. So what it's doing right now is I already deployed a solution here. So I am uninstalling the previous version and refreshing it with a new release. And then at the end of the process, Napa is going to open Outlook Web Access, and I'm going to be able to debug my application by showing some information here. So what this app is doing is very simple. So if I configure the settings of this app to get activated if there was a phone number on the mail message. So if the mail has a phone, it's going to be the app can be activated and then shows you the phone number that was selected. Sure. So what happens when you go to the public marketplace and let people be able to use that on the live? So how do you publish that live? Yeah, when the users install the app, so when you acquire an app in the marketplace, you select it there, and there's a click that says like install, something like that. And what happens with Mailbox apps is that those apps are installed on your Mailbox on Exchange. And yes. Yeah. I don't know why it's taking so long to deploy. I need to give it another try. In the meantime, I'm going to continue with other. So now it's uploading it. Takes up a few seconds the first time you do it, and then subsequent times it's more fast. But in the interest of saving a bit of time, let me continue with my presentation. So these are the other things you can do with the API. So as I was telling you, in the Outlook case, you can actually identify entities inside an email. So you can use the API to, retrieve the collection of phone numbers or addresses, or we have like a set of pre-built entities that you can actually choose out of the box. They will work. Or you can actually create your own. You can actually define a regular expression, and you can say things like, if you have that format of numbers, it's social security numbers, so I'm interested in that, and I will activate my app. Or that could be customer codes, or it could be phrases, or it could be whatever you may need. So with the API, you can actually write code to extract those entities. Reading and writing to active selections. I showed you more or less how this works. There's more details around this functionality here, and I'm not going to go into the details now, but there are powerful features such as, for example, writing not only text. You can actually write other formats like tables. You can write HTML. You can write Office Open XML and stuff like that. Document level selection change event. So this, we have an eventing model that works both at the document level. So every time you select content in the document, we actually trigger what we call a selection change event. So the scenario here is that, for example, you have a dictionary or a reference app that goes and looks for Wikipedia entries. And every time the user selects content on the document, you trigger, the selection or the translation of those terms. Let me show you an example of how that works. So I have here a app. Let me start an app. There you go. Well, this is the mail app. Sorry, guys. So right now it launched Outlook Web Access. So here's the email account of my dev tenant. And as you can see here, I have a mail that says, hey, please give me a call. And I have my phone number here. So what that trigger is that the mail app, so these things here are applications that are apps that I can actually use. For example, the LinkedIn app, it's used because it identified me as a LinkedIn contact. So if I go and open that app, it's going to go up on LinkedIn, and it shows the LinkedIn data here. So you can see here, that's my picture of LinkedIn. Okay, so this is very cool, and you can actually provide your credentials. And for example, if one of the If one of your colleagues sends you an email and he's part of LinkedIn, you can actually add it to your contacts from here and do stuff like that. My mail demo app is, as I told you, is not as cool as this one, but it provides you with, for example, I'm writing here the phone number that was found. So you can actually think how you can use this. You can actually identify a phone number and probably expose here a way of initiating like a Skype call or a link call, do interesting stuff like that. We have also addresses, so we can identify addresses here. This is the address to the party. Here's the Bing Maps, no? So the Bing Maps is recognizing that there is an address on this email, and as a result of that, it's actually charting where the party is going to be. So it's going to be very close to here. So, so just to give you an idea of how this works, I have here an item. The source code that how it works is that I can get a reference to the item, to that mailbox item. When the app gets activated, I get access to the item, in this case, a mail item. And then I can start reading things like, for example, the subject, the from line, the to line. And here, I configure this app to actually read the phone numbers. So there's a get entities method that returns a collection, in this case, of the phone numbers that were found on this message. And then I can use that collection to actually do whatever logic I need to do. In this case, I'm just showing this in the message. But as you can see here, if I go to properties, the settings for mail apps, you can actually define activation rules. And this is where you define where your app is going to get activated. For example, here, it's a set of, here are the out-of-the-box, entities that we can find. So, for example, meeting suggestions, tasks. So, for example, there's a very interesting feature that we added to this product that, as a result of some research, we can identify some words to infer that someone is asking you to meet with them. So you can actually say meeting suggestion, and you can expose actions related to that meeting. The same way tasks, if someone asks you to do some tasks for them, you can actually identify those patterns, addresses, URLs, phone numbers, email address, or contact. And then you can create your own. If none of these fit the bill, then you can actually create your regular expression. So you have to provide here your regular expression syntax, and then if that is found in the email, it's going to get activated. Then you can have access to it by using the get entities method. Okay? It's pretty cool.
So I got a quick question.
Sure.
With 2013, you sent an email that says, I have attached a file, hit attach the file. Give you a warning that says, maybe you forgot to attach the file because I found that word. Is that using the same basic technology?
No, that's an out-of-the-box. That's an out-of-the-box feature. It's not an app. Oh yeah. The question was when you're sending an email in Outlook and in Outlook Web Access, and you're not inserting an attachment or not capturing, for example, the subject.
So in your email string, you put the word attach, but you don't attach anything.
Okay.
You put the word attach, but you didn't attach the file. So it'll tell you, hey, you might have missed the attachment. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the question is if sometimes in Outlook when you're typing, see the attachment and all of that, it suggests you that, hey, you're not adding the attachment yet. So we're going to have the answer to the question is no, that's not an app, that's an out-of-the-box feature. But we are planning on adding, more of these features with attachments on the next releases. Where I was. Okay. So we have a few minutes left here, so I'm gonna run you through the concept that you can do, and actually this is something that you can actually find. I will find a few that I want to show you specifically, but other things you can do if you are working, for example, in Word or PowerPoint, is you can actually get the whole document. And the features that we try to implement here are services like, for example, remote printing. You may be able to have an app like FedEx Office was building an app that you can actually print remotely to your closest FedEx location. Like, for example, I want to print 1 million copies of this flyer. No? So you can actually do that, but the feature that is required there is obviously to get the whole document. So you can get the whole document, and you can use the API to get it either as text or as a binary file. You can send it over the wire to a printing service or whatever service you need. And then there's a concept that is super critical for the platform, that is the bindings concept. And this is how we achieve, the parity across applications that you can bind to Office common objects such as tables or just plain text or other things. So once you establish a binding, you actually have access to more services. And I want to show you a quick demo of what I mean by that. This is a demo that is actually important. So I have a demo here. It's pre-coded, and I'm going to show you very quickly how that works. So I have an app. I'm going to show you how it works, and then I'm going to show you the code. Basically, what this is all about is I'm going to show you what are the types of bindings that you can create, or how you can create those bindings, and then how can you have access to specific services of those. Let me write some data here. Let me zoom this in. I'm going to put here January, a month. Something quick, something Jan, Feb. Yeah, we're exposing some cascading style sheets so that you can actually look and feel the same way as Office, but those are not updated automatically, unfortunately. In Excel, you can have things like named ranges, no? For example, here, if I navigate to this name, you can see that, sorry about that. This is a valid reference in Excel. So many things here. You can actually, let me insert a table here. City, Bellevue, Redmond, Seattle. Okay? And this is going to be a table. I'm going to insert a table here with 1 column and 3 rows. Now I can bind, so the way it works is, think about how charts work, no? So you actually can select data and insert a chart, and it's going to show you some bars or whatever chart you selected. So you can actually hit here to bind to selection, and what I'm doing is I'm showing just the results of my selection here. What is the data that is part of the binding? You can actually bind also by prompt. This type of binding is that you prompt the user to select some data, no? So you say, hey, select some data to chart or something like that. This is again a pattern that we see in charts in Excel. So you select the data here and you click on OK, and as you can see, I'm getting the 10 result there. But maybe you want to create bindings without depending on the user selection. So the way to do that is you can actually bind to named items. This is a feature that we know as bind to named items. And here I'm binding to this. I have hard code here to bind to a matrix name, to a range name expenses, like it's this one. I'm able to get the data from it. And finally, you can actually bind to tables. Sorry? This one?
So you selected the month grouping for expenses, but when you bind it to it, down to it, you actually got 100, 200, and 900, which wasn't part of it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's probably part of it.
Yeah, probably it's above there somewhere. Sorry about that. Then I can establish a binding to a table. And as I was telling you, once you're bound to some data here, you can actually get the data of that binding, set the data, change it if you want, plus additional functionality, like, for example, you can subscribe to, you can add columns. For example, in this case, I bound to this table, and I can add columns to it. I can add rows. I can subscribe to selection change events. Like, for example, if I want to determine when the user is selecting a specific row or cell or ranges of cells inside this table, not outside, just inside of this table, so that you can have complete control of what the user is selecting inside of it. So that's like a primer to how bindings work. that's an important concept. And I'm going to wrap. I hate to do this quickly, but I have to wrap up my presentation at this point. This is information that you can actually see on the website. I just wanted to let you know what you can do here. The storing settings is a settings object that you can actually get and set data to it, as I described in a few minutes ago. And then custom XML parts. I have a few slides here that show you what's custom XML parts. So it happens to be that if you crack open a Word document, a docx file, it's nothing but a zip file that contains a bunch of XML files inside of it. And one of those files, it can actually be a folder here. It's custom XML. You can drop XML files there. And then the beauty here is that you can actually map some of the elements or attributes of this XML file, that is part of the file, into UI constructs in a Word document. So you can actually map, for example, the customer to that customer right there, or to the project, or to a table of information. You have repetitive structure there. So content controls, you can achieve that by inserting content controls and then mapping the content controls to specific elements here. Content control is basically like a text box inside a Word document. And with the API, you can actually automate, adding or deleting custom XML parts, getting or setting nodes, or actually subscribe to events, when the nodes are added or deleted. You can manipulate basically the XML using our API. It's a very powerful feature. Custom XML parts. So this is actually a map of, to summarize what I discussed here, what you can do with the API. These are the functional areas of the API versus what's available currently in the platform. You can see that Word has almost selects, sending data, getting data as table matrix, as HTML, getting the whole document, bindings. Excel doesn't support set data as HTML or Office XML, or you cannot get the whole document, but you can actually create bindings and settings, and so on and so forth. The idea that I want to tell you right now is that we are actually, the investments that we're going to do in the future are around supporting these functionalities in more applications. We have scenarios that require it, and we also plan to have more functional areas so that you can create more types of applications. Okay, so let's talk about publishing your app. So so the first question that many people ask about this is, where should I host my app? I need a place to host it, either, I don't know, GoDaddy, or if I have my own web server out there. For Microsoft employees, this is actually a very easy decision. The recommendation here is to upload it to Azure. Because if you go to HTTP subscriptions, you will see that as a Microsoft employee, you are entitled to an Azure subscription. So you can actually get all these data. You have 1,500 compute hours, 2 small VMs, 5 databases, and enough for getting you started and play with this. So if you go to this website, windowsazure.com, it's actually, I'd like to do this demo, but I don't have time to do it. But it's a very simple task to actually create a site and then upload you can actually export a profile from your Azure website into Visual Studio. And then from within Visual Studio, you can actually publish your apps into Windows Azure in a very easy way. And then finally, you can go to once you're done creating your app, you can go to the Seller Dashboard, website, to actually publish your application. So let me show you a little bit of detail there. So this is the Seller Dashboard. When you go to the website, you're going to see that you have a UI that looks like this, no? And if you want to create a new app, you want to sell your new app, you're ready to deploy it, I want to show you what's more or less the process that you need to go through. So I'm going to go ahead and log in my account. This time I'm not going to tell you my password. But the idea is that once you go there with your user and password. Come on, why is it so slow today? Come on, there you go. So I have I have an app that sometime I'm going to publish, which is an Urban Dictionary app. But I'm going to ahead and edit the draft and more or less show you what is required to publish your app. So first of all, you need to provide an app title. You need to provide the logo for the app. This logo needs to be of a specific size, otherwise it gets rejected. It's 96 by 96 pixels. And then here you have to upload your XML file. So when you create your app, you remember that you're creating a manifest. So this is where you upload actually your manifest. And that's all we need, for publishing an application. And then you can actually say if this is going to be like a trial application, you can actually enforce that. You can say, hey, you're getting this application for free during the next 3 weeks or so, and you can enable such types of scenarios. Then you can actually add a short description and a long description. You can add screenshots, and again, the screenshot needs to be a specific size. You can have up to 5 screenshots of how your app works. You need to provide links for your documentation, and if you have an end user license agreement, you need to provide it here. It's optional. And then after you're done with that, you can actually do the pricing thing. You can actually say, oh, this app is going to be for free. Of my app, it's going to be, I'm going to sell it by some amount. So you can actually go from $149 to $1,000, and that's it. So you can actually save it as draft. I will put it for free now. And that's it. Once you're ready, you can actually submit your app, and then it's going to start the validation process, and people here at Microsoft are going to start validating your app to make sure that it's not showing inappropriate content, that it works properly and stuff like that. And if everything looks great, then you will be published to the marketplace. That's pretty much it, my friends. How do you get your money? That's the question. Yeah. For people in the live meeting, we are. Okay, so the summary for the discussion today is, well, I more or less show you how to set up your environment. I show you that there are basically 2 flavors to create apps. The first one is to use the Office 365 Dev 10 and Napa. And the other one is to use Visual Studio with Office tools, and you're good to go to start creating your app. The second stage of your process is to code your app. And here, actually, I showed you more or less, the different feature areas that we have on the API and what types of apps you can create, and what is the functionality that is exposed in which endpoints. And finally, once you have your coolest app ever, you're able to publish it to the marketplace. And I show you how to use the seller dashboard to do it in the marketplace. There are 2 different experiences that are well documented in our help, how to publish them to SharePoint or to FileShare in case you are in an enterprise scenario. Finally, I have a few links that you guys may find useful. So the FTE program is located there. Developed for Office. That site is going to offer you information, all the details you need to know as a Microsoft employee on how to start creating apps. What are the rules and so on and so forth. Then we have the Yammer group. So we have, if you search in Yammer, if you like to use Yammer, and you can go and search Office and SharePoint Developer, you're going to see there information and that we are publishing there to keep internal social exposure. Dev.office.com is your premier way of getting help. So if you go there, you're going to find all the information that I gave you today, plus common cases, a lot of examples, and that's your source of the truth. The seller dashboard, there's the address of the seller dashboard. So once you're done creating your app, you go to that address and register as a seller, and you can actually publish your app. Azure, you can go to windows.azure.com to once you have your MSDN subscription activated, you can go to Azure to activate your portals and start deploying your web solutions there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send an email to askapp@microsoft.com, and the product group is going to be there, happy to help you be successful there. Yes, absolutely. You can have like a chart that is just JavaScript, and actually you can activate it offline. So those apps, the way it works is just as cached pages. So in IE, you have to activate your app to be connected because we need to do a validation to the marketplace. Once you have that, your app at that point is on the cache, and you can actually go offline if you need to. And if you're not accessing any services, you can actually have your app up and running. Yeah. That's a good question. All right, guys. That's it for me. Thank you very much. And I'm going to spend a few minutes here. If there are folks on the meeting that want to send questions, I'm more than happy to help. But otherwise, I thank you very much for your presence here, and thank you very much. I hope you find it useful.